the universe is pulling us all toward higher consciousness, whether we like it or not. I did that when I was changing careers. I knew, like, oh, I'm done sitting in an office with no windows, arguing with people about things that aren't important, and so I can make money. When it's beautiful outside, like, I'm done with this. Kind of really got it. It's like, money isn't about labor and it's not about time. It's not even really about creativity. Money is about being of service to others, right? So if in the energetic picture, if I just think, oh, what are my unique gifts and talents? How can I help people? And then I lean into that and start helping more people, that energy will come back to me financially. If I've set up a system where it can. There's a way for the universe to give me money, to fill my bank account with money without me actually doing anything. In my experience, I've never known where I was going and how it was going to turn out. I just had faith that my inner desire is going to pull me in a direction that's going to be interesting and fun.
Jeffrey Allen, you are our guest today, and we are so excited to talk with you. We like to explore all different ways that we can observe energy and just understanding how that works. And I especially love that your background and your career came from being a software engineer with the US Department of Energy, I believe, as well as being a spiritual teacher. So I love that so much because it brings together both the spirituality side of things and the science side. So we're so excited to talk with you. Welcome.
Oh, thanks, Terry. It's so great to be here. And yeah, it's funny because in my brain, I don't really think of these things as separate. For me, like software engineering looks a lot like energy work. I think most people think they're very far apart, but in my brain, it's like, oh, these are kindred spirits. They're right next to each other. So it seems really natural to me. I can see all the curiosity coming off of both of you. And so I'm really excited to hear your questions and have a really nice dialogue together.
Well, thank you. We actually do have a lot of questions and we definitely are very curious. Just to kind of get started, can you share a little bit more about that juxtaposition that you just mentioned? I think I've met people who are engineers and they are very linear thinkers. So they are people that like numbers, they like hard facts. And then we've got the whole spirituality side of things, which doesn't really compute in that way. I think a lot of people know who you are already and know your story. But if you could kind of just briefly give us a quick update on that, and then we can kind of dive into some really more interesting topics.
Sure, yeah. Yeah, there's what comes to mind is something that I don't really talk about much is that when I was young, I think it was maybe in high school, they did a psychology test and they were basically testing, which one is strong? Is your right brain strong or is your left brain strong? And mine came back and they said, well, this is really unusual. You don't see it much, but you're very strong on both sides. Your left brain is very strong and your right brain is very strong. And I didn't really think anything of it. I just thought, okay, I don't, it's just a test. I don't even know if it's valid, right? But years later, now looking back, I can see that that's probably what makes it easy for me to live in both of those worlds. And as I've been learning my wife Hisami's work, she even says it a little more clearly. She says, you have two minds. You have like a spirit mind, which is understands the world of spirit and kind of thinks in infinite terms and understands everything all at once, isn't great with putting things into words in a linear way. And then you have this material mind, which is for working in the material world. And it's great at engineering or logic or judging things as good and bad and sorting things. And we have both of these minds. And I love describing it that way because it gives us permission to have both. It doesn't have to be one or the other. So I don't have to think, I can't be into energy work because it's not science. Or I can't really get into science and do it because it's too linear. I really like this. Instead, you can say, it's okay to have both. All of us have both minds. And learning to interact with each one or sometimes both at the same time just brings that whole perspective, that larger perspective and the details kind of all at the same time.
I'd love to talk about manifestation and how each individual or as we can individually manifest the desires that we have.
Sure. Yeah. So there's so many interesting aspects of manifestation that I see, and uh, the first one is that, well, there's two that go right to your point. One is that figuring out what we want to manifest is actually more important in many ways than figuring out how to manifest it. And I say that because I've spent many years manifesting things only to get them and realize, oh, I thought when I achieved this, I would feel differently, but I actually feel the same. But I spent 5 years getting to here, and so it's like knowing what we're really trying to manifest can save us a lot of time. And then, so I can talk more about that one too. And then the second one, though, before I forget, is that money is just energy. And so the biggest thing that I can help people with, if you're trying to manifest money, is that you have to stop using the material mind, the one that has a kind of linear thinking and thinks about things as objects, and you have to start working with the spirit mind, the one that understands energy work. And so, for example, if you think about how money used to be, we have a great example now. How money used to be is that if I wanted to buy some music, I would go to this store and I'd see like there's 10 CDs on the shelf, and I would take one, and now there would be 9 CDs on the shelf, right? So every time you take one, there's one less. It doesn't work like that anymore. Now, when I go online, I want to get an album. I just click the button. Now there's one more. So every time somebody takes one, there's one more. Instead of every time I take it, there's one less. And that's the difference between abundance and scarcity. So when you're working in the world of objects, there is a finite resource. But when you're working in the terms of energy or digital goods, which are energy, then it's infinite, and things tend to grow and grow. And so, but our brains are used to operating in the world of objects. So, kind of, especially when we think about money, we think it's like if I have more, somebody has to have less, or uh, I'm going to get it from somebody. I mean, when I take money, they're going to have less. But it actually doesn't work like that at all. Money is just, it's about circulation rather than quantity. And so the more you can circulate it, the more that there is. So it's a little unclear. Let me give another example. So if if you paid me $100 to give you a massage, and I put that $100 like in the bank, and at the end of the month I pulled it back out, it would still be worth $100, and that money has basically been exchanged for $100 worth of services. But if I took that $100 and then I went to the grocery store and bought food, and then the people at the grocery store went and they bought something else, and then the next person bought something, the next person bought something. Somebody fixed their roof, somebody took, went to school. All this money traveled around 100 times. That same month, it purchased that $100 bill purchased $10,000 worth of goods and services. And so it's thinking about in terms of money as objects is where people get stuck in scarcity. And that's where we struggle to make more because we don't understand the infinite capacity that's there, even when it is a single object like a $100 bill.
I love that. It's funny because actually when I do think of manifesting money, what first thing that comes to my head is freedom. Like it's a freedom thing for me more than it is a tangible thing. So I think that if I put into action what you just said and thinking of it, I'm still not thinking of it as a tangible item. I'm thinking of it as a freedom, but I need to add that spirituality to it where it is, like you said, in abundance and it's everywhere. The freedom's already there. I don't need to look for that freedom. It's already there.
Yeah, that's really good. So yeah, I would say the thing you're trying to manifest is freedom, not money. You just have an idea that money will give you the freedom.
Right.
But it won't necessarily. If you look at people that have a lot of money, uh, if they don't change their mindset, they're no more free. In fact, they get. I've seen a lot of people go through this. Oh, if I could get my business to 100,000 a year, I'd be free. Then they get to 100,000. It's like I need to make 200. I need to get to 1,000,000. Pretty soon, they're working 10 times as hard as they ever worked.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
They're not free at all. There's a whole bunch of money flowing around, but they have no time. Right? And so it's because the attachment on like, oh, more money will get me more freedom, but it's not necessarily true. it can be true at some level, but it's not true throughout the entire lifespan of what we're
On the
doing.
higher
Yeah.
frequency, I think, yeah, I can see that. I love the way you just put that. Thank you.
Yeah.
And I think energetically, I've heard this before, energetically, that if, let's say, we're hoarding money, what we're actually saying to the universe is we are living out of scarcity, fear of not having enough. So that's why we have to hold on to it. So if we are actually sharing the money, as you illustrated, and we're actually spending it, and we're putting it back into the economy, and it's moving from person to person,
Mhm.
we're creating abundance down that full line of people that are receiving that
Yeah.
money, right? And we're also sending out energetically to the universe the message that we are confident that we have enough, which then the universe responds energetically to us and gives us more money, right?
Mhm.
Instead of
Yeah,
us hoarding it and
exactly.
saying, oh, we don't want to lose this.
It's really interesting because the way that we're kind of taught to think about money and the way that we grow up thinking about money uh, probably was accurate a couple hundred years ago. So there used to be a time when money was objects, that it was the object itself that had value. But that's not even the case. In the States, you can't even exchange money for gold and silver anymore. That went away in over 50 years ago. so
Yeah.
so it's literally not, it hasn't been an object for 50 years. But
Mm-hmm.
and there was a time 100 or more years ago where if you looked at all the abundance on the planet and divided by the number of people, there wasn't really enough to go around. So the pie wasn't big enough. If you gave equal slices to everybody, some people wouldn't have enough. So that set up a dynamic where, for me to have enough, somebody has to have less. But we're not in that space either anymore. It's been decades since we're there. If you look at the total GDP of the planet divided by the number of people, there's more than enough for everybody to live with financial abundance. It's just not distributed very well right now because we're in that old thinking. People are still in the like, I need to get more and more and more. That's going to buy me more freedom or more whatever, more appreciation and status, and somehow it'll safeguard my future. But those things just aren't true. All that thinking is, centuries old thinking.
Some of it too might be ancestral poverty mindset. I don't even think it's just handed down verbally. I think it's somehow in the DNA sometimes, where your parents did things a certain way and made sure that they put money in the bank every single week. The majority of their paycheck went there, and then they paid all their bills. And make sure you keep your job and don't lose your job, because then you're going to be in trouble if that happens. And you
Yeah.
learn all these subconscious behavior patterns that you really, again, subconsciously, you're not even aware that you're adopting these belief systems that your parents had, or even their parents had it. It's just been passed down this ancestral line. But it is a new way of moving forward into this new world where we are looking at money differently, we're looking at energy differently, and we're exchanging it in a more free way, I think. And I'm hoping that
Yeah.
that's kind of where we're going
Yeah,
with everything.
definitely. Yeah, I remember when I was working in, first I was working for the government, yeah, the Department of Energy, but a different kind of energy, and
Yep.
eventually in big business and a lot of startups back when the kind of the big startup boom was happening in the '90s or 2000s both, and then I started watching like how money was working for me. And because at first I was kind of playing the game like, okay, I got my salary, I got a good job, I can get like a 5% raise. That's pretty good. But if I switch jobs, then I can get a 15 to 20% raise. A year later, get another 5%, and then 6 months later, I can switch jobs again, get another 20, then another 5 year later. So I was realizing, oh, the goal at that time was to raise my annual salary, and I figured out,
Yes.
okay, I can sort of gamify the system and do that. But it occurred to me at some point that had limits. Like I could only get the salary so high, and it really wasn't getting me the things I wanted. I wasn't feeling, like you said, Tracy, I wasn't feeling more free. I was just buying more expensive stuff, right? But
Yep.
so like I had a bigger house that I couldn't quite afford,
Yeah.
and but it wasn't really changing much from my internal experience. And then I switched to once I left that career and was working more on an hourly basis. So I was doing energy readings and healings and working on that level. Same kind of thing. I'm like, oh, if I can make 100 an hour, maybe I can get up to 200, 250 an hour. And I was working less hours than in the salary job, but it also realized this the fundamental problem here is that I'm still exchanging my time for money. So if I can't work for 2 weeks, I have zero hours equals $0. Oh, okay, so the problem is that I've associated my time with money, and that's always going to feel scarce because my time is limited, right? And
Yep.
that's when I said, okay, I want to, how would I reorganize so that it's not based on my time? Because even if you're making $1,000, $2,000 an hour, uh, you still have to work an hour, right? And
Right.
you probably not, you can't work at that level for many many hours. And that's when I started getting into digital products. Can I sell some CDs? Can I do a little bit? And then eventually I found Mind Valley, but I was been teaching about 10 years at that point, teaching on stage, and it's like, oh, this is fantastic. So now there's a way for the universe to give me money, to fill my bank account with money without me actually doing anything. Like I just
Right.
do my best to make an interesting class or to help people, and there's a way for money to come back to me. And that's when I kind of really got it. It's like, money isn't about labor and it's not about time. It's not even really about creativity. Money is about being of service to others, right? So if in
Right.
the energetic picture, if I just think, what are my unique gifts and talents? How can I help people? And then I lean into that and start helping more people. That energy will come back to me financially
Mhm.
if I've set up a system where it can, right? If I was
Mhm.
still in that salary job and there was no way for anybody to send money to me except through that salary, it wouldn't matter how much I was helping people. I'm limited to that salary. There's the energy part that changing your understanding helps, and then there's also just opening the doors that in some way people can send money to you without you having to be in the middle, spending time or talking to them directly. Like once you kind of disassociate money from your own time, suddenly things can get really big, and you can just focus on helping people, spreading love, spreading joy, spreading a beautiful information, inspiration, like you're doing right now. So
Right. And it's funny, I was just listening to you say this now, and the thought occurred to me that we have to let go of our limiting beliefs as well in terms of how money can come to us. Because if we are just putting the box around it of we can only receive it through this 9 to 5 job, and this is the only way that money will come to us, then that is the only way money will come to us. But if we kind of take the reins off and allow our mind to open up to the possibility of it can come in any form at any time, in any amount. And I think that's a key component too, is just letting go of those limiting beliefs. And again, kind of going back to what we were taught as children, or what the family around us, how they were living their life and the
yeah.
belief systems they carry, and just not adopting other people's beliefs and really just kind of wiping that clear, which is not an easy thing to do.
I think people that are growing up in the digital era have a big advantage because it's really natural. Like I was watching somebody's video, it was something about guitar, right? I'm just kind of getting into guitars and learning, and I was watching a little video, and in the person's link, they said, "Hey, if you like this, buy me a coffee." And there was a link I could just click on, and it would be like, "Oh, you're just going to basically give $5 to somebody," and it's like, I'm like, "Sure, I'll buy him a coffee. That was worth it." And so this person has a way. Like I've never met him. He didn't spend any time with me, but he can get $5. So there's a way for money to get to him without him doing work each time. Yeah.
That's really interesting. And I think it's really important for people to hear this message because, a lot of people are struggling right now. And it's really nice to hear someone give a positive spin on how, individually we can change that.
Yeah, it takes a little practice and maybe a little bit of kind of trust in yourself to make the transition. It's not just about the beliefs, but it also you have to get a sense that things can return over time, right? So like right now, I'm investing like every penny I make right now, I'm investing in this new project with my wife. And some people might say that's not a great business move, but I should be putting it in the stock market or something. But I think, why wouldn't I invest in myself like we're trying to help people. We have something really beautiful, a message to
Mhm.
share. Why would I put all my, everything I have behind that rather than, like, oh, Amazon can make some money, maybe I can get a little percent of that. I mean, that doesn't really relate to me the way I help people. It does take some faith in, on my part to say, I can let go of what I have today because I'm helping more people, and I have the belief that that will return, that will come back to me energetically and financially. Yeah.
Energetically, you're also sending the message to the universe saying, I believe in myself, and allowing for the universe to return that back to you by investing in yourself that way. So
Mhm.
I think it is a win all around. And I was going to say earlier, because I know Tracy brought up manifestation, and a piece of manifestation that I've always heard of is raising your vibration. That's what everyone always says. When we are manifesting, we need to raise our vibration to meet the level of frequency of the thing or whatever it is that we're trying to manifest. And to me, that just seems like so um, abstract. I have a really hard time understanding that concept, because how do I know what frequency the thing is at that I want? And how do I know what my frequency is? And how do I match those two things? Like, is there some, like, a piece of technology I can use that tells me what my frequency is? I mean, I know they say obviously love and happiness and joy is on the higher end of the scale, and then you've got
Mhm.
fear and grief and sadness at the lower end. I don't think most people live their life in extremes. Most people live their life kind of
Yeah,
somewhere in the middle. So, what exactly does that mean? I mean, can you kind of shed some light on that for us and guide us through that
sure.
process?
Yeah, with that, so what's happening there is there's something that's true from a spirit mind perspective, from an energy perspective, that's being tried. Somebody's trying to convey it in words and kind of speak to the logical or the material mind in us. And that translation is very difficult for one. Like getting that right and not leading people off into the weeds is a very difficult thing to do. And it's also not necessary. So it tends to generate, like you said, this idea like, okay, if I'm supposed to raise my frequency to the object level of the thing I want, suddenly there's a bunch of questions that arise. How do I do that? What are the frequencies? What is mine? How do I measure it? Like just a whole bunch of information that comes in, and that actually has nothing to do with the original message. So the original message energetically is saying, okay, there's if I'm in fear and lack, if that's what I'm stuck in, my energy will be kind of in a contracted state, and it's kind of like getting tunnel vision. I won't be able to see the opportunities that are all around me because I'm focused on this little pain that I have from the past, something that happened or something I'm afraid of. And if I'm focused on that, I just get this little tunnel vision. I'm looking at this one little point, focused on it. All my emotions, all my energy is there. I don't notice all the abundance that's around me. And so raising the frequency is an easier way to say it is, when you like start to notice when you're stuck on something and then take a step back. Like the way Hisami teaches, my wife, the way she says it is, just noticing, just like, oh, I'm stuck on something. Oh, oh, look, I'm angry. Oh, I'm sad. I'm scared. Oh, and like once just getting that observation, you've pulled your awareness back. You're no longer like like if this is the if this is the picture that I'm stuck on, you like this information instead of being like this. Oh, all I see is this. It's terrible. It's black. Oh my gosh, it's scary. Everything's so black. The world is terrible. Oh no, no. And then suddenly you start to go like this. Whoa, look, I'm looking at blackness. I'm looking at black thing. Then all of a sudden, oh, whoa, but there's a whole world around me. I'm not, and then pretty soon you just put this down. And you're like, whoa, this is so exciting. And so that's what the message is about raising your vibration. It's about uh, noticing when you've become contracted and stuck and focused on some little point of pain or fear that you have. And like, don't judge yourself. Like we all have this. It's normal. It doesn't matter, how enlightened somebody can become. You're still going to get scared of things. The pain's going to get poked. Your emotions are going to get out of control. You're going to get angry or sad. These are always going to happen. The difference is uh, if you're able to quickly understand it. I'm getting really emotional right now, or oh, that really got me worked up. Like already, I'm starting to, I'm starting to get a little distance between me and that picture. And then when I can say, oh, this has happened before and I knew I got over it, like, oh, this is bigger. And then pretty soon, oh, maybe I can just put this down. And so that's the message about raising your vibration. Because when you do that, all of a sudden you see the world around you. You've expanded your awareness. That might be a more easier way for the material mind to understand it. Say you want to expand your awareness from the contracted state to expanded. That's a little easier to digest than raise your frequency. Raise your frequency is like
Yeah.
sounds very scientific and technical, and it's not
Yes.
inaccurate. It's just not easy to understand. It's just poor messaging.
Yeah. It seems like it's a
Thank you.
forever process. Like, I feel like, and maybe this is the way it's supposed to be, but I mean, I'm getting better at it, and I catch myself in those moments where I'm like, oh, I'm feeling this energy of grief or sadness or fear or anger. And I'm trying to catch it more earlier on before it kind of gets a little bit out of hand. But it's
Yeah.
still a work in progress. I feel like it will always be a work in progress.
Yeah, and that's great. That just means that you're growing. So as a person that's interested in growing and learning and expanding, of course you're gonna bump into your limits, and then you're gonna look at them like I said, oh, I'm having this limit now, and that's because you undersee it. It's going to start to fade, and then you'll approach your next limit and bump into it, and it's a sign of growth. It's actually a good thing. Yeah, one example I like to give that usually kind of sticks is that I used to sit down on New Year's Eve every year, and I would kind of meditate and just tune in on like what happened this year and where was I a year ago? Like when I was doing this meditation a year ago, where was I at? And I always looked back and felt a little bit embarrassed or like amused by where things that I thought were true a year ago. Like, oh, I can't believe I was really into that. I was really convinced that was true. Now I see that, that was just a small step. It wasn't the whole ladder, the whole universe. But I also noticed that next year I'll be looking back at where I am today and celebrating how much I've changed. I'll be laughing at myself now and saying, oh, I can't believe it. I've grown so much. And so if you can cultivate this in yourself, like getting excited rather than judging yourself, your growth can just blossom. But if you look back and say, oh, I was a total loser. I can't believe I thought that. What a jerk. I'll never get that. If you just start piling on the judgments, you really have to stop growing. It's the only way to like stop judging yourself is like stop growing. But of course, then you'll judge yourself for not growing too. Right? So I have to break the cycle and say, I'm going to celebrate my growth. I'm going to love the process of being here. I'm going to love that emotions happen and that I'm not in control, but I can love the game and I can play it well and I can try to live gracefully even in my ungraceful dances.
That's a great response to that because it is a work in progress. And at least you do have to give yourself permission also, I think, to be where you are and be at the stage of growth that you're at and not judge too harshly. But we're all our own biggest critics, right?
Oh, yeah. 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 And it's, you brought up something really important, Tara, that it's this comparing ourselves to others that is our kind of first, I don't want to call it a mistake necessarily, but it's like a malfunction. That's the word my wife uses. She's really funny. She speaks Japanese, so of course these are all translation into English, right? But she says, yeah, you're malfunctioning, meaning like you're not operating the way that you're designed to operate, and that's why things look all weird and confusing. It's like you just don't understand energy. You're just understanding all the stuff people told you. There's lots of stories and talks to lots of people, get lots of information, but that's just people's best information so far. They don't even believe it anymore. People that wrote that book, they've moved on. They're doing something else. They're looking back. They can't believe they said that. Right? So you don't want to get stuck on other people's information any more than your own. But when we can make that shift, suddenly we can just start to really enjoy being in this moment. And it's, like I said, I kind of alluded to it earlier, that working sort of in a natural way, kind of like the way we're designed to function rather than malfunction, takes patience. So you can't have an idea, especially something that's sort of future thinking. Like, I want to have a podcast to help inform people about energy and like
Mhm.
let's look at science and energy and how they can work together. And like, you're doing something that's beyond the average consciousness right now. And that's wonderful. That's why you're doing it. But it also means that you're a little bit ahead of the game. But that's okay because the world is going to catch up. And then suddenly it's like, oh, now there's this, the wave caught us. But because we learned how to swim and surf ahead of time, now that the wave's coming, we're riding that wave.
Right.
And you can't just wait for the wave to show up and then say, "Oh, here's the wave. Shoot, guess I should have learned to surf before." It just crashes over your head. So, and energy work and doing things that are kind of aligned with your own desire to improve the world looks like that. There's a time at the beginning for all of us where uh, we're we're learning and growing, and maybe externally there's not like money coming in to validate it quite yet. But
Yeah.
that's okay. It doesn't mean you're going the wrong way. What you want to do in that situation is, I always recommend tune into the when. So when I get a dream and I want to manifest it, instead of just saying how can I manifest it, also ask when is the natural timing for this to happen. I did that when I was changing careers. I knew like, oh, I'm done sitting in an office with no windows, arguing with people about things that aren't important, and so I can make money when it's beautiful outside. Like, like I'm done with this. Okay, so when is it going to shift? I know I'm going to change. When is that going to happen? And really clearly, I can understand. Oh, it's going to be 2 years. Oh, okay, great. Then between now and 2 years, I don't have to feel bad about still working here, knowing that I'm not loving it. I don't have to figure out what to do because 2 years is a long ways out. I just need to. It kind of took the pressure off, and then just magic, sort of magically, right? Um, coming up on 2 years, 2005, I was like, oh, this is the year stuff is supposed to change. Ooh, I wonder what's going to happen, right? So I suddenly, instead of like just looking at my life here, all of a sudden I'm like, ooh, I need to like expand my perspective because something's happening this year. I don't know what, but it's going to happen. And sure enough, just coincidence after coincidence came in, and things started to shift. But if I didn't know the timing, I would have felt really frustrated for those 2 years. Like, I want, but I'm not there yet. But knowing the timing was just brought a level of just peace and sort of trust in the universe that, oh, I'm going to get to where I want to go, just not in the next 5 minutes. Right? We're all very impatient with our manifesting.
I want it now. Yeah, the
Yeah.
manifestation of what we want is something I think we all do every day, and it is the McDonald's "I want it now" mentality. Do you have any specific suggestions on how someone can find what exactly is important to them, like what is in their heart, like you did, like what was the process?
Yeah, well, actually, what you described is perfect because you said what's how do you find out what's in your heart, and that's it. That's the secret. So you stop looking outside and start looking inside. And then I'll borrow a little bit from my wife Usami. I'm really loving her work. The last little more than 5 years, I've just been diving in, learning her system because I love all the energy work I teach too, the kind of the systems for creating things. But little aside here, but when I met Hisami, uh, I noticed, wow, she has this glow, this beauty, this grace that I'm hoping I'll get to someday. But she's not using any of the tools that I use. She's not. I asked her like, where did you study? What books did you read? How often do you meditate? And she's like, I've never read any spiritual books. I don't have any teachers. I never meditate. I don't have any techniques or tools. I was like, okay, how am I going to learn from her? And we started hanging out, and that's when I realized, oh, what she has is she's always in the spirit mind. She just doesn't worry about this material mind. For whatever reason, that part of her it never really grew into this like monster that we all have, inside of us. This like analytical mind that's driving us crazy. She just really is over here. And yeah, so to kind of borrow from her work, that's one of the first things she says. If you're in that state where you're not feeling satisfied and you don't know what to do, you have to just start asking yourself in every situation, what do I really want to do here? What do I want? Not like what do I want to get, right? So it's not like I want a car, I want a burger, I want $1 million. Not that. It's like, what do I want inside versus what is the world telling me I should want? What am I seeing that other people have that I'm jealous of? Like, don't look out here. Just spend some more of your time looking inward, and that's how you'll start to develop that first sense of, oh, I didn't realize it, but I kind of want to do some art, or I want to help people in this way. Yeah, and when that comes, most of us will notice that we're already doing it in some way, or maybe in our childhood we did it, right? You might notice, I totally forgot, but when I was young, I spent years when I had all that free time and could do whatever I wanted. I focused in this area always because it brought me joy. Now I've totally forgotten that because somebody told me I had to make money and go work this job, right? And somebody said, I should be a doctor or a lawyer or whatever, just by not looking out here and starting to look inward, that's when you start to get that first hint of, here's what my true desires are. And a little hint that they're not objects. Your true desires are not, it's not money, it's not things, right? It's about how you feel and how you're exchanging energy with other people and how you're, are you enjoying your life day to day? Do you feel like you can be present in the moment and see the beauty around you? Or are you distracted even in the most beautiful moments? I'll give you an example from my life. Just recently, I was in a meeting, and because I'm growing, I'm attracting people that can mirror back to me the places where I'm stuck, right? So I'm working with somebody now who I get frustrated with sometimes. A really wonderful person, really talented, really great person. I like them a lot, but working together can be challenging sometimes. But the interesting part is it's challenging in all the ways that I'm challenging to work with for other people, right? So I see it over and I'm like, oh, this is really frustrating. When that happened, I felt kind of like bad, like that person was kind of trying to make me look foolish in some way. And then I immediately remember, oh, my wife has said that so many times. Why do you phrase things like that? It's like you're trying to make people look stupid. And I'm like, huh. But so I'm attracting somebody to just mirror back my things that I want to grow in so that I can see them and I can transform them, right? And so I had this meeting and I was feeling a little out of sorts. And I went to this beautiful dinner with my wife. We're having this wonderful food that we love, and we're like, everything is so beautiful. It was actually our anniversary. But part of me is still stuck in this thing happened, that thing was said. What about that future? Is this going to change? Like, I wasn't able to be fully present. Even though I had created a beautiful moment, I wasn't there. Or I was 20% there and 80%, up here. And so I think that when we look at our true desire is to be able to enjoy the moment and not be stuck in this ever improving, ever comparing kind of a stuck place that we all get in. Yeah.
Hey there, listeners. If you're enjoying this conversation, please consider giving this video a thumbs up and subscribing to our channel. And let us know what you think and leave a comment below. We would love to hear from you. Your interaction with us really does help us grow our channel and continue to create more content just for you. So thank you so much for all of your support. We really appreciate it. Now back to the show.
I'm listening to you, especially this last story. I have ADHD, and there's a ton of people, especially adults, that are now being diagnosed with ADD or ADHD. And my question to you is, do you work with people that might have that?
It's funny because if those terms had been around when I was young, I'm sure I would have been every label. I'd have been, ADD, ADHD, Asperger, whatever words you have. Like, I'm sure, I'm somewhere on that spectrum. And in fact, I actually I was on maybe Instagram a couple of weeks ago. I really never use social media. Uh, I just, it's just all information from the outside. I don't really find it helpful. But I happened to be on there for something. This ad popped up. I'll find out if you have ADHD, right? Take our quiz. And I'm like, oh, this should be funny. So I go through and I take the quiz and it's asking questions. I'm like, yeah, I do that. I do that. And I'm really easy on myself. So it's easy for me to go, oh yeah, sure. I have all these problems, right? I don't have judgment about it. It's just how it is. Right? So I'm answering all the questions. I get done and it says, you're like of this on a scale of 1 to 100, you're like at 96.5 or something. And I was just laughing. I'm like,
It's like drive
okay,
to the
well,
nearest psychology office stat.
yeah, exactly. And I was like, okay, so this is a great sales tool, right? I just took something that told me I have a problem, and then they're going to sell me something to fix my problem. But the truth is, if I'm like the worst possible candidate for ADHD and my life is wonderful, then maybe it's not really a problem, right? So maybe so I don't think this is a big problem. I think that uh, we all have personalities. We have different traits and characteristics and tendencies, but it doesn't mean that we're broken or that we have to fix them. I think for me, like my wife is always present in the moment, and being with her over the years has been teaching me to be more present in the moment. And the tools that she shares and the spirit mind training we have together are all super simple. It's things like she says, oh, if you're not feeling very present, just like touch something, just touch your arm, because like right now, oh, I'm in my body, I'm right here, I know where I am. I'm not in the past, present, or I'm not in the past or future. I'm right here in the present. I'm here in my body. I'm right behind my eyes. Oh, that was simple. I didn't meditate. I didn't like follow 10 steps. I didn't read a book. I just physically touched something and boom, I'm right back. Uh, so, so yeah, I've definitely worked with that group because I would be in that group myself. It's great you brought this up. So your challenge is just one thing. It's just be here now, be in the present moment.
And
Right?
that's, yes,
Not
yes.
conceptually, like don't read a book called Be Here Now. Like actually do it now. Like now be now. Not don't train so that in the future you'll get better at being in the now. Like that's a total waste of time. Right? Just actually do it right now. So yeah, so you can breathe, and you did the most powerful thing already, which is you said, I know that I tend to be in the future and go on to the next thing. Knowing you can't know that unless you're in the present moment, right? So,
That's
you
good.
just notice. You want to notice. Oh, I'm self-reflecting right now. That means I'm present. That's a good thing, and I don't have to fix all my tendencies to be distracted. That's okay. I just need to be aware of them, and it's okay. Like, 'cause when you're aware of them, they're not really there in this moment.
I wanted to go back to the story you just shared, which number one, I appreciate you sharing that because it's hard to show our vulnerabilities. I think you seem very fine with doing that. And I very much appreciate that because I think that's where people learn. Because if we look at someone like you, who does have so much spiritual knowledge to share, and you also express where you have your challenges, that allows us to share that we have those same challenges too. And when it comes to
Yeah.
what you were sharing, as far as the people around us mirroring ourselves, right? Everyone around us is a mirror to whatever the triggers are that affect us. And so I had a
Mhm.
question, and I'm not sure if I can put this into words the way I articulately would like to, but maybe you'll get what I mean. So if let's say someone is triggering us because that's a mirror, and they're in our life for a reason to kind of show that back to us,
Mhm.
at what point energetically do we break that tie? Is it when we have our self-awareness of looking at what that trigger is and integrating that? And then that's when, like, let's say it's from a negative perspective. Like, let's say it's somebody you work with and they just drive you crazy and there's something they do all the time and you just can't stand it, but there's something there for you. Like there's a lesson there. Is it when
Mhm.
you learn the lesson that that person will kind of all of a sudden magically disappear from your
Mhm.
life or your awareness, your world?
So there's no one answer for every situation for that. I would say, like here, I'm working with this wonderful person that also reflects back some of my challenges. Sure, I could decide I don't want to work with that person anymore because it's frustrating. But it's not always frustrating. Sometimes it's great, right? So, but or I could say, oh, I should continue to work with that person forever until I don't have those characteristics anymore. These are kind of the extremes, right? Right. And so the answer is probably going to be somewhere in the middle. It's probably going to be like, uh, I'm not going to make a decision when I'm emotionally charged because I know that I don't make good decisions then. I just react out of pain and fear. So I'm gonna come back to a space of love, and once I do that, and I start to see like, this person is like such a gift, not just for all the wonderful things they do, but because they're giving me information about the non-wonderful things that I do, right? And I want to learn those things. I want so that I can find compassion for myself. So maybe I'll start by finding compassion for the other person, right? So that's kind of an ongoing game, and because there aren't any perfect people, uh, there's there's nobody that I could work with that's I'm going to get along with all the time and feel 100% great with. There's no person I can meet that's never going to annoy me. And sometimes there's nobody that I'm not going to annoy at some time, right? And because my wife Usami is so wonderful. I just love her so much and admire her so much. And sometimes she frustrates me, right? Some patterns that she will always do will always get on my nerves. And some things that I'll probably always do will get on her nerves. That's okay. That's just, that's called reality.
Yeah. Called
People,
being a human.
you don't have to be perfect to be perfect for each other.
Mm.
Right. And we're perfect for each other. Right now, who knows, maybe in the future that won't happen, right? But I sure hope it continues, throughout my whole
Yeah.
life.
Yeah.
I
But
love
I'd say,
that.
yeah, just kind of feel into that middle space. Expecting other people to be perfect is no more realistic than expecting ourselves to be perfect.
Mhm.
So just what I'm trying to do is find a more graceful way to do the dance. Like see,
Mm.
like, oh, why does that bother me? And why do I do it when I know it bothers me and other people? Okay, those are things that I can not ask myself from a judgmental perspective, but ask myself from a heart-centered, loving space. And all of a sudden I see a bigger picture like, oh, I didn't even realize it, but that's happening because of this old event in my life. I thought I'd completely like kind of put that in my past, but there's still a little bit of that frequency still playing, still a little bit
Mhm.
of that song that's in the back of my head that I don't even realize. And it's okay. Every time we get more aware, we get a little bit more and more distance between ourselves and our beliefs. We get a little more free. I think we do a disservice as teachers or people that have a lot of attention on us if we just show our success. It's just a disservice because it just sets everybody up to feel like there's something wrong with them, and it's not true. All the amazing people that I've met that are really successful in business or teaching or energy work or any aspect, all those people are people. And when they're off stage, I've seen the kindest, gentlest people get frustrated and snap at somebody, and it's kind of shocking. You're like, oh, I can't believe that happened because I've never seen it. And then realizing, well, of course it happened because they're people. You can think of the same thing right now, and the political cycle is really charged right now. Everybody's like looking at the other side, and I don't like that thing, I don't like that thing, but everybody's a person, and people have feelings, and uh, people's beliefs are kind of confusing and mixed up. Nobody has a perfect belief system, and including ourselves. And so, starting to see that life gets really interesting. Like, oh, I want to learn about people. I want to kind of see what makes them tick. I want to know what's going on behind that thing that on the surface I don't like. Like suddenly things are interesting rather than bothersome, or it's just really it's a more beautiful way, easier way to live. Yeah.
I did want to ask you, since you just mentioned it, not specifically the election, but just in general, the state of our planet and our current economy,
Mhm.
just how consciousness now, how it reflects what's going on our planet, and just where we're at with the growth of our consciousness, and how everything that's coming up right now
Mhm.
is in relation to that. If you can speak on that a little bit, that would be very interesting to hear your
Sure.
thoughts.
Yeah, there's so much happening right now. In general, kind of in the biggest picture, I would say that our consciousness is rising in general. And anytime there's a lot of change, you'll see apparent division. So the way I like to describe it is if you had say you had 10 people like this, kind of spread evenly across this, spectrum from one side to the other here, right? So we've got maybe conservative or liberal or, what any spectrum you want to pick here. When you're evenly spread, there's not much distance between people. There's not much conflict going on. But right now, what's happening is people are moving frequency wise, we're moving to one side. So people are sort of like more and more people are moving over to this higher frequency. And so that creates a natural gap, like a huge gap between people that are here and people that are here. And as more and more people move over, we're going to end up, where it's like there's a bunch of people over here and just a few people over here. And the gap between them seems like insurmountable. But nothing really changed. No gap appeared. All that happened was people were growing, and we happen to be at sort of an inflection point where a lot of people are kind of tipping into the same direction. And so that makes it look like the people that aren't moving at the same speed in that direction are somehow behind or something, which isn't really true. So energetically, it's fine. Like don't buy that there's a division there because people are growing apart. We're actually all growing together. We're just growing together at a different pace. Everybody's kind of starting where they are and going at their pace. So it looks like it appears to be a large gap in consciousness now, but in general, it's really good. Everything's moving up, and that change in consciousness is what's driving the change in technology. So consciousness shifts, and then technology shifts to support that, and then consciousness shifts again, and we're going through this really rapidly right now. From back when I was young, when you picked up the phone, when it had a cord to the wall, and you dialed it like this, you didn't even push buttons, right? And you didn't call people, you called places. I called my friend's house. I didn't call my friend because when I called my friend's
Right.
house, sometimes I just got beep 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 because his sister is talking on the phone, right? And you just hung up the phone. There's no answering machines or anything. You just call it, try again later, right? It was very much in the present moment, right? There wasn't this ability to leave a future message. And what that changed. So we got technology came in and said, oh, we want to be more connected, and all of a sudden I can carry this around, years later. And now when I dial this, I call a person. I don't call places anymore. I'm calling people.
Right.
And if they're not there, I can leave a message. I can text them. There's all this innovative technology to allow us to connect better. And so now our consciousness is evolving to adjust to that. And so we're kind of the way technology is supporting us right now. Our consciousness can move faster and faster and faster upward, or kind of expanding rather. Or you could say high frequency. That's another way to say it. And the challenge with that is that in this environment where we're moving so fast, to kind of go back to this, um, our beliefs are this is information, things that I believe to be true. It's like a photograph in time. So it's what I decided was true, or somebody told me was true, maybe when I was a kid or 10 years ago, or it could be even last week, right? It's stuck. It's a photograph. It's not evolving. That's what we call them, pictures energetically. And things are moving so fast right now. If I don't get good at pushing these away and looking at what's really happening right now, I'm going to quickly feel just overwhelmed, depressed, like I can't get anything done. Like all the like challenges that we're facing are kind of the same thing. It's all our inability to separate ourselves from our past decisions on what was true, because things are moving fast. It doesn't matter what was true last week or last year or when I was a kid. Those things aren't true anymore. They're just not relevant. So your ability to distance yourself from those and open up to what's happening now determines how smoothly you can flow. through life. Uh, but it's tricky because we're all looking outside, and everywhere you go, somebody's telling you what's true, and so you have to get really good at. So I wouldn't say don't listen to any of it, just noticing that yes, that's true for that person at the time they said it, maybe at best. But that's it. That's enough. That's still valuable, but it's not true for everybody at every time, or even that person right now, even though they said it. So getting more fluid with your beliefs and letting them be a movie that's happening all around you, this 3D reality, rather than being concrete things that you can hold on to. This is always going to be true.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't know if I just articulated it all very well, but I believe things are going in a good direction, but like energetically things are moving in a good direction, but as people we're not adapting very well to the speed of change that we've created.
Mm.
So
Yeah.
people are having a lot of needless pain and suffering because we're stuck moving at a pace doesn't fit reality anymore. And most of it's because uh, we're looking outside rather than just trusting the crazy guidance that we get that says, start a podcast, or move to Sedona, or be an energy healer, or whatever it is for you, whatever guidance is coming up when you're really clear and you get it in the moment. Trust that and go for it. You don't have to abandon the job you're in or your money income and stuff like that. You can kind of do things simultaneously, right? You can do your new thing while still making money off the old thing. But don't just plan for the future, like the future date when you'll be brave enough to take a step forward. Like do it now. It doesn't have to be perfect. You don't have to know all the answers. You never, in my experience, I've never known where I was going and how it was going to turn out. I just had faith that my inner desire is going to pull me in a direction that's going to be interesting and fun. And so the more you can trust yourself in that way, the like things just get easier and easier. But it can be kind of a wild ride. So be prepared.
I love
Be
that.
prepared to enjoy your change.
I love that. Speaking of change, I'm going to go in a different direction here. A hot topic has been solar flares, and
Mhm.
some say that it's dangerous, others say that it's helping raise our vibration. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I think both of those things are true. Yeah, I mean, yeah, certainly solar flares can be dangerous, but also I don't know if it's because of the solar flares directly, but the vibration of the planet itself is getting higher and higher. And so that's consciousness wise, that's really helping us. So, because our brainwaves synchronize with the earth. So um, you know, it's like the universe is pulling us all toward higher consciousness, whether we like it or not. And so once you kind of get that, you realize, I could keep having a tug of war with the universe, but that's probably not going to work out well for me, right? Maybe I need to just follow where things are going. So yeah, probably both of those are true. It's like on some level harmful, but on some level helpful. Yeah.
And I know that you have a special program that you and your wife put together, and it's called Spirit Mind. Would you mind sharing with us a little bit about that program and what it entails?
Mhm. Sure. Yeah, I've been talking about it kind of here and there throughout, but yeah, Spirit Mind the program's called Awakening Your Spirit Mind, and it's my wife Hisami's work, and we actually took us a little more than 5 years to put it together. She'd been teaching it in live workshops for a long time, but to actually sit down and create a system where people could go through an experience day after day and kind of like bump into the challenges they needed to bump into and release them, and like to make a little system that people could go through and help to open up this spirit mind that's kind of an all-knowing consciousness. It's that part of us, we call it intuition. Sometimes we say that's my spirit guides or my angels, or I get this inspiration from God or the universe. Like all of that we're talking about is just I'm accessing my spirit mind, that part of me that's connected with all that is across all time and space, and all information is available just in an instant. So that's there's a lot of words for that, but in this program we just call it spirit mind. And to get that, the main thing that we need to do is look at over here. We've got this really highly developed material mind that knows how to calculate things and judge things, and it's fantastic for the material world. But it knows absolutely nothing about the infinite world. Like it's just good at the finite. And so all of us are trying to, even most spiritual programs are really trying to, it's like a material mind perspective on spirit mind. Like let's let's learn about spirituality instead of actually just being in the moment and accessing all the information. So this was the challenge of this program. And so it's 5 weeks long. And we just go through step by step, kind of look at where are the places where people are getting stuck. And then what are some techniques for moving through those stuck places. And it's really a combination of really nicely produced teaching videos from my wife, Usami. And then there's a lot of videos of me sort of doing what I'm doing now, which is kind of navigating. So, okay, when we hear that, what does it make you think, or what do you think it means? Okay, and then what does it actually mean? Okay, now, just kind of like going through, I really help this material mind side, like understand this information. It's a little hard to process. It doesn't quite, the infinite realm doesn't fit well with our logical mind. It takes, but I'm pretty good at that, right? So that's my that's my gift, is trying to is blending those together. So that's the program in a nutshell. And the goal by the end of the program is to have an experiential sense of I get it. I'm able to do what I was saying here. I'm able to start to observe myself objectively. I'm able to see myself with unconditional love. I'm able to see people around me with love. I can see that the peace that I'm cultivating inside is propagating to the people around me, even if I'm not talking about it. Like frequency wise, I'm literally spreading love just by being in love, right? And at that point, once the program's over, we do free live calls for people once a month, just to help everybody come back to that vibration, because it's really easy in daily life to get back like kind of into our old patterns. And we wanted to do something that's helps people come back, but also people don't feel like they're on the hook for an annual subscription all the time, paying. It's okay. Just, they're monthly calls. We're doing them anyway. So any graduates can come for free, and they're very casual and light. And we just
that's
kind of
nice.
work with the energy and kind of come back up to that space so we can kind of circulate spirit mind energy together. Yeah, it's really fun. People are having great results, and it's really nice to work with my wife.
I bet. That sounds like a really great program, and we'll definitely be sure to include the link for that in the description of the video for anyone that wants to sign up, which we definitely recommend. And I know I love having these philosophical discussions. I could talk with you for days about this stuff, and we actually have so many other topics that we wanted to cover, but I know we are limited on time, so maybe we can have you join us again another time and we can cover some more information. But we just so appreciate you, Jeffrey. This is such an amazing conversation that we just had with you, and we really appreciate you doing a deep dive and sharing your knowledge with us. And just before we wrap up, are there any final words that you'd like to share with anyone listening today?
Oh, yeah, that's a good question. Yeah, and thank you. I'd be happy to come back sometime and talk more. It's just been a real pleasure to share. And final words I would say is right now when I tune in and look at your audience, there is a sense that like a little bit of heavy energy that I sense in the audience of like, kind of it's kind of up here in the upper chest area of people feeling like what I want to create or the way I want to live, like I don't know how to do it. Like I don't know how to get to the place I'm trying to go. And so to speak to that energy, what I would say is that's okay. You'll never really know how to get to where you haven't been yet, because you haven't been there yet. But if you trust yourself and just kind of look for the opportunities and notice when they come up, you'll get there. The other thing I would say is don't be afraid to take action. I hear this so many times from people that are, wondering why haven't my dreams come true? especially if you're tuning in and using your intuition already, you might tune in and feel like, when am I going to meet that perfect partner? Oh, it looks like in 6 months I'm going to meet them. And then like you get excited, 3 months later you tune in, when am I going to meet that perfect partner? And you get, oh, in 6 months I'm going to meet them. And then maybe a couple of years go by and you're still tuning in and hearing that in 6 months you're going to meet the perfect person, and you're starting to think your intuition is broken. Uh, it's not broken. What you're missing is how you didn't take action. So to use the same analogy, right now I'm in Tokyo, so it's about a 30-minute drive to Yokohama. But if I look, an hour from now, if I check, it'll still be 30 minutes to Yokohama because I'm still in Tokyo, right? And every time I check, it's still going to be 30 minutes away because I haven't moved anywhere, right? You actually have to go toward your goal, right? You have
Right.
to trust yourself and move toward it for it to get closer, right? It's not magic. Your dreams aren't going to just appear. Like you have to lean toward them or walk toward them, even if you don't know where you're going. So, okay, yeah. So the energy looks good now. So just a little bit of amusement and love, and just like, it's okay that we don't know what we're doing most of the time. That's okay. That's perfect.
Thank you for sharing that. I think that's really important for people to hear. Those are very simple words, but they're profound. And it's important for people to have the permission, as I always say, to live their life the way that they want to on their own terms. So thank you for sharing that. And thank you again for sharing all the information you shared today. We really appreciate you, Jeffrey. And thanks again for your time. Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks, Garrett. Thanks, Tracy. It was great. Thank you, everybody.